Hi students, today I want to talk to you about classifying matter. Make sure before we begin that you have whatever sheet you're going to record your information on. So you have your student journal sheet, or you may have a digital form of this sheet, or you may just have your science journal. You're also going to want to have a couple of different items with you, so you can do this either after I do it or alongside me. So I'll pause me for a minute and then go grab what you need and come back. Okay, so I'm going to start and jump in by classifying matter. I'm going to use the styrofoam ball for my first example. Now I can see with my eyes that it is round, it is white. I can feel with my hand the roundness. I can feel with my hand that it is rough. I can also hear that it's rough. So you can even hear it there. Those are different ways I can classify just by using my five senses. Now I can get a little bit more technical and I can use some tools to help me. So I'm going to show you the tools I have here to help me classify matter. I have a pan balance. I have a magnet. I have a thermometer. And I also have a cup of water to see if an item is going to sink or float. So we're going to use our styrofoam ball, and I'm going to show you how to classify this ball using these tools. So let's start with the mass. Now I told you that it feels really light. So I'm going to put this in my pan balance, and I'm going to start with my lightest unit of measurement here, which is 5 grams. If you're at school, you may have a smaller one. You may have 1 or 2 gram plates as well. So I'm going to put this in here, and I am making a mental note here of how light it is, and I'm estimating that 5 might be too much, but I'm not quite sure. So let's see. And I can see here that 5 grams is just a little bit too much, so maybe 2 grams would be more appropriate, but I can definitely record on my sheet and say that my styrofoam ball is less than 1 or less than 5 grams. Okay, let's take that out. And what I've done with this is I've just measured the mass of the styrofoam ball. When I'm talking about measuring mass, I'm talking about measuring the amount of matter that's inside this ball. Okay, let's look at magnetism. I can take a magnet and test to see if something is magnetic. So what I'm going to do is just put this here, and I'm going to run the magnet over it. And I can see, whoop, let me hold it, that it is not magnetic at all. Now, if something were magnetic, I would know right away because it would do this. And then I would know that it is magnetic. Another item I can use to classify matter is to test to see how hot or cold something is. Now, there are some things to be careful with when you're using a thermometer. You always want to make sure that you're using a thermometer that is safe. This one is enclosed, and it's also not in anything hot, so I'm not at risk of burning my hands right now. I also want to take note of the increments and how the thermometer is read. So here I can tell that it's done in increments of 2, and I know that because if I start at 70 and I go up to 80, it has 5 marks. So 70, 72, 74, 76, 78, 80. So you can tell that in my house right now, it is about 80 degrees, which is too hot. I can also test the temperature of this water by putting my thermometer in the water. So again, what I'm doing is I'm classifying this water by getting the temperature of it. I can also look at it and say that this is a liquid, whereas this was a solid. I can look at it, I can feel it, and tell you that it feels cool to the touch. It's definitely colder to the touch than my styrofoam ball is. And as I'm holding it in here, I can see that my temperature is already going down, and right now it reads 76 degrees. So that's one way I can use a thermometer to classify matter. So I want to go over a couple of things that we've done so far. We have gotten the mass using a pan balance and our gram weights. We have looked to see if something will be magnetic by testing the magnetism using a magnet. We have also classified matter by using a thermometer to test to see how hot or cold it is. The last one I want to show you is sink or float. So we can use something with water in it. If you're at home or at school, you can just get a small container, put a little bit of water in it, and let's test to see if our styrofoam ball is going to sink or float. Make your prediction first. Okay, I've got mine. Here we go. And I can see that my styrofoam ball floats. Now, if you look really closely, you'll see that I have a whole bunch of pennies in here. So I actually have 10 pennies inside this cup of water. So I know for sure that if I put pennies in water, they are all going to sink. So that's another thing I want you to realize is when you have an object, whether I have 1 penny or 10 pennies, anytime I put them in, they're always going to sink. Sometimes we get confused and it gets a little bit tricky, and we think just because something is really heavy that it's always going to sink, or something that's really light, it's always going to float. The penny is a great example of something that's really, really light that sinks. A boat would be a great example of something that's really, really heavy that floats. See if you can think of some other ways that you can classify matter. See if you can use some objects around your home or school to classify matter, and see if you can really think outside and say, okay, what else do I think sinks but it might float?